Hi everyone. Just wanted to do a discussion on my workshops. They were a huge turning point for me, actually. Because in the beginning, and it was, like in the beginning, I was kind of in a lot of frustration in that because I didn't feel like I was getting understood. Because I would say to my friends and that, like my brain's working differently now, and they'd be like, well, Jules getting into some spiritual stuff. I was never getting into anything. I was trying to figure out why I was experiencing myself in life differently, like automatically. Um, and I never felt like it was a spiritual thing that had happened. I felt like it was a human thing that I realised that was going on, and there was not a doubt in my mind that this wasn't going on inside of everyone else as well. Um, but whenever I would try and describe it and explain it and that to friends and that, they would always kind of put me in that box over there with all of, the astrology and tarot cards and health healing, all beautiful. But I didn't even feel like I knew about any of that stuff or actually had a huge interest. I more thought it was this kind of human thing that if I was doing this and having this experience and that, then others could have it as well, or why weren't they, and so I was in a lot of frustration in that, and I think part of me felt really alone in it as well, alone in my experience of it and how I was understanding it and that, like nothing was matching it out there. And so I kind of sat there one day and I thought, well, if I can channel from you or pick up off you what you've been up to recently and how you're feeling and why and all those things, then I must be able to pick up from you how to show you how to do this. Why wouldn't I use the process of this awareness to achieve that result, through the process of taking something from A to B? Because I knew that if people had this experience for themselves, then I'm understood in a whole new way, and then I'm not kind of feeling so on my own with this either. So I tested that theory and I got together a group of about 6 to 8 people many moons ago. And there was a variety in there. A couple of them I knew personally, a couple of them were clients. There was a couple of males, there was the females, there was people in their 60s, there was a girl that was 20, like there were all those variables in there. And they were keen as, like I didn't even know how to approach that to start with. Hey, I want to see if I can teach you how to do this. Want to give that a whirl, And they were like, for sure. Like I was quite surprised by, I don't know, I feared an awkwardness with all of that and it just wasn't there. It was like, there was an enthusiasm with it instead. And I didn't even know whether it was going to work or not, but we got together at my place one day and I even had a whiteboard and everything, and I, then started looking into what's it going to take in order for these people to be able to have this experience for themselves, because I knew everybody was experiencing for themselves at some level, like I could, like I'd talk to people about their experiences and that, and they'd be like, oh wow, last week it's like I thought the phone was going to ring and then it did. So there was, like they're definitely touching on this, and it's always been there with them. And I'd always looked at it at the beginning as just it's like my intuition, If I had to call it something, it might be a closest reference would be a higher self, but I don't even know what that meant, And so I kind of knew that people were consciously having those experiences here and there anyway. And so in my endeavour to be understood in that, like I kind of brought all this experience about and processed through the day, and then there were big wows over the day, and I was just constantly following the channel and going into whatever information felt right to go into next, and whatever I had come into my mind to explain, and I also would feel if I wasn't getting understood, and then I would look for a new example, not consciously, that was just happening, but another example would come in that would have that click with it being understood, you know. And everyone was having so many cool experiences, like they were picking up those little details and everything off each other, and they were, you know. And then I had one of them come up to me afterwards, and he's like, "Oh, this is just my own thinking." And then I was like, "Yeah." And I remember feeling in that moment like it was like a relief with that, you know, because I felt like someone finally understood what I was talking about, you know. Without it being boxed in anything. Because even in the beginning with my friends and that, I mean, I hung out with a lot of musicians and that. Music was a big part of my life, younger years, partying, the whole lot. And, you know, like I didn't even know any of them even had any beliefs or anything at all, you know. And then when I started having these experiences and talking to my friends about them and that, it was like one of the guys brought me over a Bible with like his name in it and saved by the grace of God and that, and you know, was it meant to save me or something? And then other friends were like, I don't know, they belong to something where they don't believe in dead people and that, so it's like they weren't comfortable with me talking about the spirit world and that. And I was like, oh, shocked me that there was even issues with the subject matter, you know, because I'm just trying to figure me out. But I didn't even know any of them had any beliefs or anything that and I knew them for years, you know. And so all of that kind of surfaced as well, and all the differences of opinions on it all and what people thought I needed to know. And yeah, but I felt very, very misunderstood, and I knew that the only way that I was ever really going to be understood and feel understood was if other people were consciously experiencing this for themselves in the same way, you know. So in that first workshop, it was a big turning point, you know, and I never looked back. Like the workshops became a real big main focus, because I felt like the readings were like giving me a fish feeding for a day, and the workshops were like, let's teach a man to fish feeding for a lifetime, you know. And the confirmation and the appreciation and gratefulness that I received from so many people definitely felt like I had found a sense of a huge purpose in this, you know. And it was really rewarding and fulfilling to know that, you know, I created some positive shift and change in others in that, you know. And through all of that, it was like when I finally got to that point of understanding this and the ways in which I kind of come to in that, it's like I really didn't feel the need for anyone else to understand me later on, you know. But in those early days, it sent me on this path. And so I run the workshops and that, and the workshops were amazing and worked every time, 100% results. And I loved the uniqueness of from one workshop to the next, you know, and the differences with them. Like there'd be ones where there was 10 people and ones where there were 40 people. But my primary focus always was about facilitating them with enough information and guiding them into experiences where they get to have the experience for themselves, because that's the only way you're ever going to have the truth of anything, you know. The truth's inside of you. I've said that many times. You know, and I know that because when people go to the workshops and then after they're like, oh, I didn't realise it was quite like this. And I'm like, yeah, I know. It doesn't matter how much I explained it, how much I tried to simplify it, the different examples I used. It was never ever going to be understood until the person had that experience for themselves, you know. And even on an earlier video, I said to you guys, somebody asked me one day, you know, what makes your answers right? And I'm like, the only thing that makes anything right, whether we see it, read it, whatever, is the credibility that you feel it with, you know. That's what makes your answers right. It's that click, you know. Somebody says something, it's like, oh, that doesn't feel right, or yeah, that does feel right, or you know, like the truth's in you. It's never been anywhere else. In a more simplified context, probably not a very good example, but it'll do. It'll do. Say you had, say you've never been to Australia, you know, and I come up to you one day and I'm like, yeah, nah, they haven't got any birds in Australia at all. You'd be like, well, of course there'd be birds in Australia. You know, like, doesn't make any sense. There wouldn't be. Pretend you haven't seen TV or anything. You haven't, you know, been to Australia yourself or anything, but you're still thinking there must be birds there, you know. And I'm like, oh no, they for some reason there is no birds in Australia, you know. And you wouldn't believe me in that. You'd be like, nah, can't imagine it. And you go off in that, you know. And then you come across your mate John later on in the day, and you'd be like, hey mate, you've lived in Australia. They got birds there, eh? You know, and the reason that you're doing that is because there is that 1% of doubt because you've not been through the experience for yourself, you know? Now, if you've been to Australia with the bird life and everything, then it don't matter what anyone says or does or anything. There is no one that is going to ever be able to convince you that birds aren't there. You know, you are in 100% truth of that because you have experienced that for yourself, you know? And so, so the truth's in you, and that's how we're all gaining wisdom, you know? Like, wisdom, in the definition of the dictionary, wisdom is knowledge plus experience, you know? So it's not just knowledge, you know? I've met a lot of people that know a lot of facts, but I don't know if some of them aren't altogether that wise, though, you know? And so I always begin my workshops by saying things like, okay, I'm going to give this to you like ice cream, you know? Like, pretend you've never ever had ice cream. Now, as soon as I say that, you think of the cones, the freezer, the flavour, or you try and think of something else in the acknowledgement of knowing what ice cream is, so you don't have to think about ice cream. However that scenario plays out in your brain, every level of your being knows what ice cream is. You can't pretend you don't know what it is, you know? So I say to people in my workshops, I want to give this to you like ice cream, where you get to have the experience of it. And then on Monday morning, after the workshop, you can't pretend it's not there, you know, because you have experienced it. You can't unknow it, unexperience it, you know, and then go away, learn through that, you'll be fine. You are your best teacher, you know. And so, yeah, that's what I said to say to some people, that I'm like, oh, you don't believe in the dead world or that dead people are around? I tell you what, come to a workshop, I'll put you in an experience where you can talk to the dead guy and then you can tell me what you reckon after that. Yeah. Then see what you think, you know? And so you are that, Judy. You are the truth. The truth is inside of you. You know, when I'm in a workshop and I'm explaining this to people like that, that's just like, you're not hearing the truth. I'm not telling you the truth. What I'm sharing with you is a philosophy, you know? And what a philosophy is it is somebody else's idea on the way in which things work, you know? But it's not the truth. It's a philosophy. And so when I'm offering up that philosophy, you know, that idea, and then you go on to experience that theory and that idea, the birds and the dog are creating chaos out there, you go on to experience that idea and you have that experience for yourself, then it's the truth. And then, and only then, is it the truth, you know? Yeah, you are the truth.